I'm very honored to welcome Bilal Siddiqi, who is the leader of business and enterprise architecture at the city of Calgary. Hello, Bilal. Good to have you with us.
Hi, Jose. How are you?
Doing great. Bilal currently heads the business and enterprise architecture at the city of Calgary. His EA experience includes government, financial, and the consulting industry. He has a successful EA transformation at the city, and now their EA has been maturing their strategy and planning areas. He will share with us his EA experience and the approach that has given him success in establishing strategy and planning for the enterprise. Bilal, really look forward to your presentation.
Thanks, Jose. Thanks for the introduction. Okay, thank you. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, depending upon where you are. Before I dive into my presentation today, I will just like to provide some background that why I chose this topic. Enterprise architecture history goes 40 years back to 1980s. As EA is organically maturing over the time, this journey has shown us some success and justifiably some struggle. I would like to talk about how EA can play a key role to support an enterprise's strategy and planning. And when I say enterprise could be a corporate, it could be your business segment, it could be a portfolio or a division. If you are an EA, you will get some ideas how to develop a robust strategy and planning for your stakeholders. If you are a consumer stakeholder of enterprise architecture, you will have an understanding of how EA can support your enterprise strategy and planning and what to expect from this engagement with the enterprise architecture. I will try to conclude my presentation in about 35 minutes or so and then have some time left for some questions. All suggestions that you're going to see in this presentation today, we have formally achieved it all at the city of Calgary. This presentation is a continuation of my previous presentation that I presented at Gartner last year. And that in that presentation, I showed how we successfully transformed enterprise architecture. And the title of that was the, excuse me, injecting EA into the city's DNA. So my name is Bilal Siddiqi. I heads up business and enterprise architecture at City of Calgary. My team include enterprise architecture, business process management, and change management. I also direct solution architecture practice at the city. Had been in IT for over 24 years and 13 years solely within the core EA discipline. Additionally, I had been providing consulting and advisory to other organizations on and off to assist them establishing or repositioning their enterprise architecture practice. So I'd like to provide the city of Calgary's context before I jump into my other slides. Calgary is third largest city of Canada by population. We have 7 departments, and those 7 major big departments have 35 lines of businesses. We offer 55 plus customer citizen services, which are supported by 700 plus applications. These are the vertical applications supporting those niche areas. And the reason I have got this plus here is because still there is a big variable that we are trying to understand from the previous technology lingering components. We know we are certain that we have 700 applications, but we know there are more that we are not aware of. And one of the major reasons is there are a lot of cloud applications, and it's a challenge to put guardrails around the cloud application. And all you to get a subscription of any cloud solution, all you need is a plastic card, plastic in your wallet to get that. And even if you put some guardrails around it, when the business stops that subscription, or when they expand that solution, we're trying to kind of it's an area that requires more maturity, and we are kind of working on that, and we have some success already on that area. And we also have 55 shared applications. These are the enterprise class applications that are shared across all the city. As I mentioned, we offer 55 plus customer services. We offer everything from A to Z, like from affordable housing to water treatment and water supply. It includes services like 911, fire, police, transit system, environment protection, etc. There's so much technology behind these 55 plus customer services that I'll just give you a quick example that Calgary is famous due to its severe winter weather. During the peak winter time, so Calgary is responsible to provide clean water to its residents to their houses. And during the peak winter time, some of the pipelines gets frozen, and we have hundreds of kilometers of those pipelines delivering that water. So when some pipelines gets frozen in some areas, no one knows about it until a citizen lodges a complaint. And when the complaint is lodged, then the teams are activated to first identify which portion of the pipelines of the city have got frozen, and then they fix it. So we would love to know proactively that which areas are the problem areas, which areas it's started to get frozen, and then fix it before even the resident lodges a complaint. And we are working on a technology to keep monitoring our water pipelines only. And that's just one example here. I'd like to provide some timeline of our journey at City of Calgary in the context of enterprise architecture. So before like pre 2002 time, this is the early PC era time. So the businesses when they were hampered by the deliveries were hampered by mainframe development, they started and they had some delivery pressures. So they started installing bunch of PCs in their areas. So you can imagine those bunch of PCs times 35 lines of businesses. We had so much of redundant data sitting in those bunch of PCs throughout the city. While this model achieved some short-term delivery pressures, but it ended up with redundancies and technology complexity. And also, we had no idea about what is our total technology spend at the city. And at that time, there was no disciplined EA approach in the city. Then after that, because that model kind of didn't really work for us, then we moved into a more of a central authority kind of a model. And this is the model where structure where the central roles like technology or IT were kind of given more authority. We had a new EA team which was formed, and that EA team actually what they did, they kind of put themselves as kind of some kind of a gatekeeper or something, that nothing could go to prod unless an enterprise architect reviews and provides his blessing to move to the prod. And that really didn't really work because business deliveries were severely hampered by that. And and what happened, there was a lot of expectation from this core group, but there was not much maturity or readiness to support all those business deliveries. And eventually businesses started to kind of have IT in their own areas without letting anyone know, and we have those kind of shadow areas. And that kind of whole model moved us into a different kind of a structure, and I call it more of a business technology model structure. And this structure where the central IT and the business and technology in business, the BT groups, they coexist. And the idea was that we wanted to have some good collaboration between the core central technology functions and those BT groups. So, but then we had some governance challenges here because those standards were not matured enough to support that collaboration. And we had a new EA team formed after the first cycle, and that EA team, they intended to do everything for the city, and they got overstretched, and then eventually those service qualities were impacted. They had a formal BATE structure like the business, application, information, and technology structure, but there was a loss of appetite in the enterprise. There was strong focus on fully customized modeling solutions with no architecture wisdom, and they became very prescriptive. And the words, the terms like modeling, models, or architecture, they became disapproved terminologies in the city. And this all resulted in becoming an irrelevant and an isolated team and a practice to the enterprise. An EA mandate got lost somewhere in this journey. And from here onward, we had a huge mountain to cross. But anyways, so after doing some changes in the work, so we got a new EA team now. So that new EA team has got a new mandate defined by working with all the stakeholders. We have recognized IT central IT as a center of excellence. Partnerships have now been developed and they continue to grow. EA team has become a well-integrated, approachable, and a go-to team. This was the spirit of my previous presentation at Gartner, that how we successfully transform EA and started injecting into the DNA here. If anyone who is looking to get a link of that presentation, they can just email to me, and then I can provide the link to that presentation, which I will provide my email at the end of this presentation also. So now enterprise architecture has become formally positioned to support strategy and planning at corporate level and other business departments and business units level. And we have successfully completed a number of a corporate level and a number of line of businesses and departmental level planning and strategy work, and develop some roadmaps. And there are some active engagements currently going on to support other business areas. So enterprise architecture does provide a disciplined approach to strategy and planning, and this is the main spirit of my presentation. So how does it do it? Enterprise architecture improves stakeholders' shared understanding of the complexity and provides a structured approach towards a rationalized decision making by assessing current business and technology landscape, uh, provides family-based one-pagers, simple views or pictures that can help and support decision making. Like my EA group at the city supports the highest level of technology committee, which is chaired by our CIO and has GM representation from the businesses in that committee. For every significant project or a program business case, we provide those one pagers highlighting what is the business case's objective, the enterprise level risk with that objective, with that business case or project, what are the opportunities, and any suggestion that enterprise architecture group has for the decision makers so before they approve it or not. And this has been very well received by the committee and factors into their decision making process. And now it has become a regular key part of our governance process. Every month we have this process going on with the senior stakeholders, people who are technology focused and people even who are business general managers. They kind of look at those one pages from the enterprise architecture group. EA practice improve visibility to enterprises issues, challenges, and opportunities. It factors in external drivers like the industry or technology direction relevant to that enterprise. For example, how changing demographic or technology innovation is going to influence your enterprise. Those new terminologies like AI and machine learning and blockchain, what those things mean to your organization, and how they are relevant to in your case, and if you like, if your enterprise would like to invest anything on that, then how to maximize the value of that investment. Then EA provides a pragmatic approach to identifying right focus areas for the enterprise while ensuring these focus areas and potential benefits are relevant to the stakeholders. And then finally, EA practice, it develops a formal strategy and planning comprising of your business and technology strategy, how this strategy supports the services, the customer services, any other major concept that the enterprise has. It aligns with that very nicely. Underlying structure and functions the enterprise performs, the governance around it, the short-term plan, and strategic integrated roadmaps. It may develop a new or influence an existing execution plan or a roadmap that the organization has. In addition, it should also provide a repository so that the content is maintained and also shared across in a user and a business friendly ways. At the city, we have developed a corporate level strategy and a roadmap, and we call it a corporate technology plan. And that corporate technology plan is shared across the city using an interactive web portal. And it's written in a very business friendly language that our stakeholders are not just in IT, they are the decision makers in the business. So that committee that I mentioned, the corporate technology committee, which has the GM representation, they also look at that while making the decisions on on the projects or the technology fate at the city. Strategy and planning exercise is a complex process, but a good EA practice should be simplifying the complexity to improve clarity and enable decision making. Enterprise architecture approach also provides tools and techniques to govern and sustain this formal strategy and planning. This sustainment model includes a framework to ensure future recommended initiatives or projects best fit to the business needs and align to deliver the value. It also reduces redundancy across the enterprise, aligns organizational constructs like line of businesses, department, or divisions to concepts like service offering, those outer-based concepts, to provide more clarity how your organization, your enterprise collaboratively work together to support your services. So I will have a specific slide just on technology being a driver for business change. Technology has now become a driver for business change. In the past, technology used to be an afterthought of the business strategy. In order to respond and be prepared to drastic changing business environment, expectations, and demographic shift, technology is now on the forefront of our business strategy. Technology-enabled conversations and engagement are a must now, especially with this COVID situation. Even pre-COVID situation, technology-enabled conversations are a must to engage your customers or citizens. Information collection has become a must. How we collect the information while supporting the processes and delivering those services. For business strategy decisions, non-technology is a major factor. There are a lot of enterprises who are spending on new technologies. This brings new avenues for their business, but there are going to be many enterprises who will be focused on having narrow focus technologies to meet their current needs. And eventually, I call it a reactive approach, and this approach will eventually hit the wall and stale their business progress. So what we need here is an excellent alignment between the business needs and the technology investment, and it's easy said than done. So I had a client that who had been heavily investing on a technology since about 25 years, and that technology they started kind of perceiving that technology as an enterprise technology, but that technology was never meant to be an enterprise technology. So eventually, this all resulted in a very costly solution with 200 plus process workflows that that we could barely meet any new business emerging requirements or business growth. So my team had engaged with them, and we developed a strategy and a roadmap just specifically for that business domain. And the roadmap was kind of spanning around 2 to 3 years that eventually helped them to isolate, decouple the business tools and the technology and the business expectations accordingly. There's a need for a more strategic and cohesive approach towards technology. Technology investment decisions made while keeping in future in mind should always pay us off. So unprecedented times require out-of-the-box thinking. There's so much technology out there in the market, and innovation is at an unprecedented level that there's a need for a significant there's a significant effort required for a cohesive solution. Those big giants like Microsoft, Apple, and Oracle, they are now offering more and more solutions on the cloud. But they're not just offering those solutions for a specific business problem. They're now offering those on a common platform while supporting that cohesiveness. So this technology area has become a complex business on its own. And for businesses to stay competitive and stay relevant in this economy, now enterprise architecture for strategy and planning is now a must. It has become a business on its own, and this is why we require enterprise architecture penetration more and more into the businesses to support having that kind of great alignment between the business needs and the technology investment, and support that future driving roadmaps and strategy. So before I get into how to switch your EA to support strategy and planning, I will share some of the known enterprise architecture challenges. I've done a number of architecture maturity assessment over the last couple of years and have completed a number of transformation exercises. And as part of it, I took a number of interviews with various stakeholders at various levels from the business and IT. I will share some of the common perceptions and themes about enterprise architecture coming from those stakeholder interviews. And none of these should be surprising to anyone, I believe. Majority of the business folks say that the EA is an IT concern. It has nothing to do with business. It's about developing a technology solution only. They're just modelers who like to model things. It's a complex thing. Uh, we don't know what they do. Uh, what they say makes sense, but what's next? How to do that? We think they can help. EAs can help, but don't know how. Some people have seen are seeing perceive EAs as being the paratroopers who are coming from the top, jumping from the top, and bringing new standards and new language. And people feel like they're different, and it's not relevant to them. It's some people feel it's all theory but no practical. Um, Bringing a new practice and language that does not work for that enterprise, and it's not relevant. So and then many times the line between the architecture guidance and architecture standards gets blurred. And sometimes it becomes too prescriptive and sometimes too vague, and balance is required all the time. Sometimes it loses its wisdom and eventually becomes an irrelevant practice. Sometimes the purpose of EA gets vague in the organization, and sometimes EA starts stepping into other toes because of the no clarity in the roles, and the context of the work gets lost eventually. Sometimes it's too much of architecture work and it's an extensive, never ending process. So all what we need here is a right fit approach for every enterprise. There's so many frameworks out there like DOGAF and Zachman and DODAF, and IEEE and Gartner, they all provide their own definition of enterprise architecture. Right? Sometimes it complements each other, sometimes we see some gaps between them. So which one should we be following there, right? So every organization has to find the right practice for their organization, for their enterprise, and making sure the practice that does not require any clarification or justification. Its justification should be simple enough to share and for people to exercise it. And that's what I always refer to, that if you have an easy and a logical practice, then you can inject it into the DNA of any enterprise. Frameworks are there for guidance. You know what is right for your enterprise. So we talked about enterprise architecture benefits to the strategy and planning and some of the EA challenges. Now let's talk about gearing your EA to support strategy and planning. So reposition the EA in our enterprise to support strategy and planning is one of the foundational primary thing that someone has to work on. We have to EA can do a lot more functions, but majority of time one team cannot do everything. We may not have that core team to have the capacity to support all the areas. So we have to find what is the right purpose of the enterprise architecture. Define that context in the enterprise. Why do we need the EA? We need to have open dialogue with our stakeholders to understand what is the ask of your key stakeholders from the EA practice. What are the opportunities here? Everyone is doing some sort of architecture uh, without even recognizing that they are doing architecture work. So what is their contribution to the enterprise architecture work and the portfolio planning and those areas? What I meant when I say and stakeholders, I refer to our senior leadership in IT and business, the middle management, and people on the ground who are the consumer of enterprise architecture. Then build this practice with them while ensuring that it is the real world and stays relevant. Develop some standards because when you develop those standards, then you will be keep on referring to those standards while developing strategy and planning for your portfolio or your corporation. We have developed a corporate technology plan that provides a 4-year business technology strategy and a roadmap. It's in alignment with our 4-year business planning cycle. It includes things like business capabilities, goals, technology, the application, the technology agnostic function that those technologies perform, and a 4-year roadmap. So this is a core component that we regularly referred to while developing a business portfolio plan, because you can identify many overlaps or reuse opportunities across those portfolios. Many business units, because of lack of their maturity in the technology area and the expertise, they start leveraging some of the technologies for a function for which those technologies were not meant to support it. And if they start leveraging some of those enterprise class applications, those applications are best equipped to support those areas and more future driven. So that kind of exercise, while when you're developing your strategy and planning, referring back to your standards will always help. But you got to have some standards defined by working with the stakeholders, and build your rapport, right, and trust by establishing good network of supporters, friends, and delivering on time when it matters the most, and be part of the value chain. Ensure that it's a value driven approach and an outcome based approach. Focus on deliveries at the right time. We When we had some, during the struggling time of our enterprise architecture practice, our CIOs asked was that they wanted to see just enough architecture. I mean, that's what I call a value driven architecture approach. And it's not one team that can do all. One team cannot support the enterprise architecture. Establish a community of practice and extended teams to support your architecture function across the enterprise. And this will improve visibility to their roles and the work that is happening across the organization. And finally, I like to talk about empowerment versus control. And this is very important, very key to me, very close to my heart. Control is opposite of the community of practice concept. We have witnessed many EA initiatives failing due to the lack of understanding between governance and control. Governance is not about protection. It is to ensure clarity in roles, ensure right job is done by the right people, they have the right focus areas to work on, provide guidelines and standards to support them, and track progress. We got to empower others, and strategy is relevant only when it is actioned by our people. And when it's being actioned upon, then we have to go back and readjust our strategy based on the learning from the actual actions that are happening to support that strategy. So that connection, that cycle, it has to flow continuously to support the enterprise. So we got to have a superior collaboration and very active participation with our stakeholders relevant to that enterprise, whether you are doing it for the whole corporation or for a specific line of business or a business segment. This is the most fundamental requirement towards a successful engagement, that we like to have an active stakeholders participation. Normally, when we get engaged for an to develop a strategy and planning for an enterprise, I normally start it by developing a statement of work or a statement of architecture work exercise. We do a facilitation session while having all the relevant business and IT stakeholders together. We understand the problem, what is the issues and challenges they are having, define the problem. We identify the deliverables that are required to be produced, and that ensuring that those are going to be consumed, and what benefit those deliverables are going to be adding for that line of business area. And then present it at the executive sponsorship level, get the approval at the senior leadership level, and then interview your business and IT stakeholders to understand what their areas do, their issues and challenges, emerging opportunities that they have, that they feel that their enterprise has. You will have some common themes coming out of those interviews, and that those common themes will actually drive your future work, deliverable from this office engagement. Ensure that EAs are going back to the stakeholders and presenting their findings all the time. So this active stakeholder participation is the foundational to develop any good, robust strategy and planning. And another key consideration here is to have a sponsorship. I normally suggest to have sponsorship at both at the executive level and at the middle management level. Executive sponsorship will ensure this work gets the traction and is supported across the organization. And the middle management sponsorship will ensure active participation and support at the working level. Like we have an active engagement currently going on, where we have the middle management sponsorship actually participating in those interviews at the business and at IT level, along with the enterprise architect, and that is really paying us off very well in that engagement. And these engagements have the tendency to drag us into all sorts of challenges and issues in the business environment, and make even it may even take you to a pit hole. I never had any engagement where it started with something, and then eventually different key stakeholders or senior leadership had questions that required some analysis to be done to answer those questions. So it is very important that how we keep managing the scope of this engagement, and understand this, in the impact if we change something, and manage the expectation accordingly. Stakeholder conversations would primarily be focused on two areas which are unique to them. Like problem, any stakeholders would tell you, I have this problem in my area, this is what my team does, this is my problem, this is what I like to achieve. And they will also talk about some opportunities or issues or challenges uh, which are shared across. And this is the main area where you would like to pay special attention, because these shared areas are the ones where you will get the business is going to get the most value of the investment, and your proposed roadmap will get a lot more traction here. And while you do this work, you will find some areas which are shared across, but there's no ownership from the business. So you will identify those areas also along with that, and then keep on identifying and keep on circling back with your stakeholders accordingly. Stay focused to ensure you stick to the plan and actively manage the scope of work, as I mentioned earlier, and don't boil the ocean. Find the right focus areas and the prioritized ones. The effort through this engagement has to be outcome based. It has to be value driven. You can focus on strategic opportunities, but at the same time, the near term objectives and some of the quick wins too for the business, depending upon what is their top agenda in that year. Many times, the proposed strategy and roadmap focuses on foundational components and those foundational projects to support those foundational components. While it is important to lay this strong foundation, but we have to ensure that the roadmap should always be focused on driving business value. There are ways to have a robust strategy and business value driven roadmaps with underlying foundational components. A good engagement on a strategy and planning is acknowledged when it is done at the right time. Questions should be answered at the time and they are relevant. So we got to ensure when we answer the question when it matters the most. So to understand what is the time constraints here, is this work is going to be leveraged by some other planning process. We have 3 months or 4 months to happen, but then again we will have some collaboration, some socialization gonna go with that. So how you wanna strategize this engagement with them to ensure that this work is used and consumed by your stakeholders. So what a good strategy and planning be comprised of? It should factor in good blend of business and technology stakeholders context, as I mentioned earlier. Stakeholders engagement by conducting their interviews, understanding their concerns and issues is very important. I have not seen a successful roadmap developed for a business area without having active participation by the business and IT stakeholders. So, and then this analysis should be informed of what's happening in the industry for that business domain and relevant technology industry. So there are times when the business is very keen to have some expertise or have some advisory from the industry perspective. For example, we had one engagement on developing a framework for an integrated HR talent management. So we wanted to know, is there any industry direction on that area that we can leverage? A good effort is acknowledged and deliverables are consumed when it is delivered at the right time. Question should be answered when it's relevant. This analysis work should be relevant to the current realities of the enterprise, like what your proposed roadmap mean to the in-flight projects. So whenever we do strategy and planning work, we also review all the in-flight projects that the business has taken upon, or what are the near-term projects which are embarking. So you make sure that you develop your roadmap or your strategy which is relevant to what they are actively trying to pursue. The roadmap should be focused on driving business value. One of the pitfalls that I have seen in many architectural roadmap engagements that they are mostly focused on foundational components such as data architecture or common platform development project, etc. We should be hiding such complexity and keep it within IT. So that is very important because there are many times, even within city, where the enterprise architects used to share that complexity with the business, and they were kind of proposing some projects where business couldn't really see the value coming to them. They had some pressures to kind of relieve, and they wanted some quick wins. And at that time, telling them that you were going to have work on some data architecture practice or data architecture framework is not going to work. Senior stakeholders and program project sponsorship will have this particular question: what this roadmap mean to their program or their current spending. So your roadmap should be relevant and highlighting interdependent dependencies. My integration is important here. The roadmap should ideally be between 2 to 4 years of plan. Anything I feel, anything beyond 4 years is more of a vision. So it should be like 2 to 4 years. Anything below 2 years is probably could be may not be very realistic. So you have it normally 2 to 4 is an ideal, but again every organization is different, and I think it depends on the maturity in that area too. The roadmap in most cases should also propose a governance review, and this is sometime when we develop a roadmap, the very first thing we propose in our roadmap is to review the governance. Are there any existing governance committees which are kind of functioning and that requires a review here? Like in one instance, we identified around 300 governance committees to support one business domain, and there was not even any alignment between those committees. So they were not even kind of complementing. Sometimes they were kind of competing with against each other. Roadmap should be focused on service delivery all the time. The deliverables like strategy roadmap or any model that you produce should be easy and self-explanatory. Uh, a picture portrays 1,000 words, but the picture should not take more than reading those 1,000 words. Excuse me. So this is a very common mistake. Pictures have to be self-explanatory, and this was one of the area where our former EA practice kind of got most of the beating from the stakeholders. A good strategy and planning engagement should not be more than 3 to 4 months. I've noticed that when the business engage an enterprise architect, normally they don't have the patience to wait for more than 3 to 4 months. And even for those 3 to 4 months, we have to ensure we keep on managing their expectation, because the expectation will be keep on changing. So making sure that if we see the scope is increasing or there is more complexity, how you kind of manage the expectation. And sometimes you have to hide the complexity and move some of the new finding or some of the deep dive work into as part of your roadmap, proposed roadmap initiative. So normally a 3 to 4 months is a good time, and you need to have some time left for some socialization, and to ensure that that work is consumed by the planning process in the business area. So finally, I have some common tips that I would like to provide here that may indicate that if the EA practice while supporting the strategy and planning is moving in the right direction or not, and also to ensure that not to fall into some of those common traps. So again, to me, people is always the top agenda. So people, and people, right? This will build EA's credibility and anything EA develop. So we have to collaborate, socialize with our stakeholders, have open dialogue with them, build the strategy not for them but with them. This really pays us off. We need to use plain and simple language that they can understand. and avoid any philosophical discussions. I think those discussions like what is the difference between business capability and a business function, or an application function and a business function. These are killing discussions. These are not going to help anyone. So we have to avoid such conversations. Develop a strategy which is not easy. Developing a strategy which is easy to understand, and but again, developing a strategy process is not easy. It's not one team that can do all that. It's a collective effort, and we require a clear role and responsibilities, and ensure it's done in a collaborative way. We don't boil the ocean. Be pragmatic. Develop more one pagers. This is what we do to provide one pagers so that the questions can be answered by having a quick glance of maybe a minute or less than a minute to get the answer that they're looking for. Hit the right areas, and the focus should be develop less content that drives more values. Right? Have a clear context for any deliverable. Avoid complex busy pictures. This is again very important. Many times we architects like to develop complex models, and we expect that everyone will get it, but we have to avoid those things. Use your models to answer specific questions rather than sharing absolute models. For example, instead of sharing one big capability model, uh, because many people may see it it being a very busy picture, it may make more sense to share how those capabilities support the business case or customer services or whatever the key top priority that the business has, or their strategy. It has to be relevant and answering a particular question. Don't overstretch. It's more about quality, it's less about quantity. It's more about quality and less about quantity. There are other roles which are more focused on quantity. So EAs should be focused on quality and developing less content. Be sure why, who, and how these deliverables are going to be consumed. So like in my team, I had set a principle that we're not going to produce any deliverable unless we know who will be the consumer, how they're going to consume it, and what will be the benefit to that consumer. We will not, otherwise we will not be delivering any model or developing any model. Be part of the value chain. Timing of answering is the key. Making sure that EA is considered all the time when senior management has questions. They come to you, and while they know that they will be getting the response at the right time, and hitting the right areas. Be reminded it is a continuous process. Architecture is a mean to get there. It's not an end. And finally, we have to build partnerships. No partnership is not a good sign. And I believe this is the last slide. And thank you for your time for my presentation. And as I mentioned, you can send me an email if you want to get my other presentation on how we transform our EA successfully at the city. Thank you. Over to you, Jose.
Thank you, Bilal. Appreciate the comprehensive review and journey of enterprise architecture. We have a couple of minutes, so I'll ask a quick question here. There are different questions about the challenges that you may have faced on implementing, the strategy and the execution, of course, of enterprise of EA in a government setting, in a public setting, and but not so much on the challenges. You share the journey up to now, and there are comments and questions about is there an evolution to where you are, or where do you see as the next step of maturity of what you're doing now with EA at the city of Calgary?
Thanks for this. A very nice question, and I normally call it my evil plan because I don't share that plan internally. We have to kind of change things under the cover.
Good, good. Now you're only going to share with 1,500 people, so you're fine. Don't worry about it.
So I'm just talking within my enterprise. So yeah, I think we have, as you know, we have started doing this strategy work for the enterprises. I think we have 35 line of businesses and 7 departments. and each of those line of businesses have divisions. So at every level we have to do this planning. At the same time, what we don't see right now happening is there is not a very like great cohesive approach between how those enterprise class application or technology roadmaps are being developed and the businesses, what their aspiration is. We would like to have that handshake, having two-way communication happening. So we plan to further socialize the strategy and plan that we're developing for them with them to make sure that they are kind of having a good eventually producing good demand management practice for the city. And the other area that we are focused on is we are trying to find efficiencies. So we are kind of we have been approached by our CIO to explore some of those common platforms on leveraging can we improve cohesiveness across all those enterprise class applications and the services that we get from that cohesiveness. And this is the and I think this is a big win from an enterprise architecture team for that the CIO is engaging them to do this kind of an analysis, which is going to change the whole technology landscape for city in the next 5 years.
That's fantastic. Bilal, so grateful for you to take the time and share your expertise with us. We very much appreciate all the insights you share with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Jose.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of day one. So I hope to see all of you back tomorrow. Tomorrow we have an exciting lineup of speakers and topics. So let me just run by them very quickly with you. We're going to start the day tomorrow with the challenges in realizing AI use cases for enterprises and the way forward. There's going to be a session with the senior director for SAP Artificial Intelligence. So you do not want to miss that. We'll follow that up directly from Mumbai, India, with the enterprise architecture leader for Mondelez. And Mondelez is one of the largest snack companies in the world, and they're going to talk about EA in the context of their global operations. Followed up by Dr. Ulrich Kalex from Germany, discussing how you scale agile effectively with strategic portfolio management. And then we'll wrap the day tomorrow with the Vice President of Enterprise Quality and Operational Excellence for Daikin Applied, and he's going to talk about ownership and accountability and the functional linkages to the enterprise operating system. So these are experts on a global basis who will be sharing their expertise with us tomorrow. And I look forward to seeing you back. For those of you who are going to check with us on LinkedIn, leave a comment there. Make a comment about day one, and we look forward to continue the conversation on the platform afterwards. So have a great rest of your day, whatever you are in the world, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.